All right, hi everybody. My name is Vivekanand. I'm a research scientist in the Ashton Graybill Spatial Orientation Lab, and then I used to also be a PhD student in the neuroscience department, which is where I can feel some of the terrors of doing pizza talk in this very room many years ago. And then I became a postdoc, and then now I'm a research scientist. For today's fun little talk, what I'll be talking about are three different things. The first is an invitation to collaborate, because my reason of existence is collaborating, doing interesting, sometimes weird, unexpected things. These collaborations can be science, they can be art, they can be everything in between. So I'll give you like an overview of that, and in case any of you want to collaborate afterwards, feel free to reach out. And then the main stuff will be point 2 and 3. Point 2 is an interesting exercise, which I have fallen into just the last 1 or 2 weeks, so very fresh. And it's called rope flow. And then the third one, related to that, is the Indian Gada. And I'll talk a little bit about that, and maybe even give you a little bit of history, the very limited that I know through my, search of Wikipedia and related stuff. So in terms of like different collaborative stuff that I do, back when I used to be a grad student here, I created a variety of different groups. My first born baby group, I guess, at Brandeis was this thing called Disortium, the Brandeis Multidisciplinary Consortium. And it had all sorts of people from anthropology and musicology and computer science, kind of like talking points. But what we were trying to do was bring all these ideas together and then collectively give birth to some multidisciplinary baby that was nurtured by these deep ideas that we were exploring, and really trying to build bridges that maybe didn't exist. So, 2 examples of this. One event that we did was an event on violence, and looking at different perspectives into violence. We had like the neuroscientist talking about violence. We had a musicology student talking about how violence is encoded into music, and then a professor who teaches government talking about violence from that perspective. And then the other event that we did, I brought the topology department and the neuroscience departments together, and we had like a series of dialogues, conversations, and collaborative idea generation at the intersection of these fields. So if any of you want to do anything like that, I'm always happy to resurrect this thing. The other one I created was a technology research interdisciplinary group. This was when I became interested in human augmentation, which is something that I explore in the research that I do. And so we're learning how to do Arduinos, and we're doing literature review in that field. It also, at one point, I co-founded the Science Policy Initiative, which existed for about a year or two at Brandeis with a lot of gusto, but then also faded away. And then the final thing that I did in terms of groups was create this Waltham High School summer research program, because I used to teach at Waltham High School as a high school teacher. And so that ran for 7 years. Some multidisciplinary ideas, again, I know we're not supposed to talk about science, but just to seduce you just a little bit, is the idea that, I've done talks where I've said that the stuff that I do, where I strap living human beings into a machine, I blindfold them, they try to balance themselves, and I look at when they get disoriented, can be related to things that other biology and neuroscience students look at, such as angular path integration. I've done math bio talks here where I've tried to promote the idea that a lot of what I explore involves the mathematics of oscillations and phase spaces, and phase transitions and homeostatic set points that then shatter. So these are all vocabulary words that we share. So why not collaborate on an interpretation that spans multiple different fields? So if any of you are interested in that. I also do a variety of science art stuff, which I'll just quickly show you in a second. When I was a graduate student senator, I was part of the committee for the Festival of the Arts, and at one point we created, using images from the labs of Brandeis, artwork. And a lot of that still, in a permanent form, resides in the scene. If you walk down the hallways and stuff, maybe you will notice some of those things. The other project I'm working on is bringing together science, fashion, and dance, and that interests you, come and talk to me. And I'll show you like a very quick picture of that. And my current project, the Human Augmentation Dance Project, and what I'm trying to do is this is just for fun, but bring a bunch of dancers together, or non-dancers, just people who want to explore movement. We build these devices that detects body tilt and then communicates to the dancers how one dancer's body tilt is going through vibrations that they feel on their body. And part of what we're exploring is, can you create emergent patterns of movement based off of the body tilt of people and the feedback that you get through vibrations. So if you're interested in that, so probably some of you study emergent properties, feel free to come and talk. So I'll just quickly show you this website of mine that has some of the things. So, for the research side, community engagement, here's one example of the fashion dance thing that we did. So this was in collaboration with Brooke Stanton, who's a director of costume at Brandeis Theater. So she created these, and a lot of the research that I do is funded by NASA, so it's like space stuff, and so these dancers were like planets and moons orbiting one another, and they had these little devices that didn't really work at the time. The second gen is hopefully working a little bit better, but still, they made a very cool dance, and so that was one of the projects that I had done. And similarly, with my girlfriend, she does like fashion, she teaches fashion, so this was a double-breasted vest that symbolically encodes my research. So we're trying to get like scientists who then want to express through fashion their identity. And then one of our interns created this, which represents, again, space exploration and stuff that she understood about that. The other things that I do, if you ever want to collaborate, do clothing art, woodworking, a whole bunch of photography, video, all sorts of stuff. And then I do science art. So here's the exhibit that I had done. This was in Schlossberg, which is at the music school. And hopefully some of you recognize some of these images because they're Messine. All thanks to the former Professor John Lisman, who passed away, but he was also an admirer of art. And so he helped me get this like permanently placed there. So this is all like science from different people at Brandeis. And then this one's my own little piece of artwork there. And then here's 3D printed data that we did. Alberto's right here. He was one of the collaborators on that. Okay, cool. And then this was like for climate change, and one of the undergrads, in collaboration with the physics professor and a fine arts professor, created a 3D printed island of Tuvalu and showed what climate change may do as salt water comes into the freshwater lakes and stuff like that there. Okay, very cool. So those are some of the things that I do. The other thing, the final thing while I'm here is that I do a lot of community-based stuff, mostly in my house, but I explore events related to like spiritual healing or American identity, environment, humans and technology. So if you ever want to like interact with interesting people, you are all welcome to all of that. Okay, so that was that portion of it, and now we'll get on to maybe the fun stuff. So the rope flow is I brought some here, so in case you want to try it out, is like an exercise, but it has a very like flowy, dance-like quality to it. How I got to it's kind of interesting. So the work that I do is with the vestibular system and disorientation. I was thinking about vestibular stimulation. I even did a multidisciplinary event with a dance instructor who does pole dancing, because they spin and I spin people. There must be some sort of connection between the two of those. And then that got me interested into the whirling dervish. And if you're not familiar, these are dancers who will spin, and some of them can spin for like an hour and get into this ecstatic, trance-like state where they feel spiritually as if they're one with something larger. So I got interested in that and reaching out to people if they want to collaborate. And then that got me interested in alternate states of mind. And I just did an event in my house exploring alternate states of mind without any substances, just through different other methods. And that got me into rhythmic trance and rhythmic movements, and eventually that got me into rope flow. And so just in terms of, just as a side thing, I did look at a little bit of like this research paper as to what are the different methods to getting into altered states of mind without, alcohol or drugs. And they're actually kind of interesting, before I get into the rope flow, just because like I was looking at this and I was like, I didn't even know this. So one type is spontaneously occurring. So this is like when you're in dream states, you can kind of get into an altered state of mind, or a near-death experience can get you close to an altered state of mind. There's physically and physiologically induced, so you have things like starvation, extreme environments can throw you into an altered state of mind, sexual activity can, and also like respiratory movements like deep yogic breathing. And then there can also be psychologically induced, sensory deprivation, sensory homogenization, which is where you get like a solid, like intense red light just all around you, and that throws you into an altered state of mind apparently. Meditation and things like that, and also disease-induced like schizophrenia and epilepsy. So in any case, all of this got me thinking, how can I bring altered states of mind into some sort of exercise? And that's where I'll show you the first video of what I saw before I even tried it out. So this guy's obviously a lot better. I've only been doing this for a week. But you can see, here he is. The weighted rope, he's not even skipping here. He's just like flowing around. Apparently part of the benefit of this is it just increases your mobility and your strength. I'll just show you one last video before doing a little bit of the demos. What's interesting is that the rope flow also has, like, I don't know, an intellectual side. And when I saw this thing called the cardinal laws, it made me feel like these were like right-hand rules or transformations. I thought it was kind of cool. So this is just like a minute long, and then I'll show you my very limited version of this.
The hand patterns. The best way is to first understand what is called the cardinal laws of rope flow. Now what this simply refers to is if I imagine myself to be standing on a compass and I'm going to get my rope swinging this way, okay? I'm going to be driving the rope down and back to put me in an overhand swing like this. And I'm going to be facing this direction, which we're going to call north. Okay, so here I am facing north. I'm swinging that rope in the overhand position by driving the rope down and back. And what I can then do to transition into underhand is to just orient my body around the rope. So I'm going to turn my feet, I'm just going to turn my body. Here I am, I'm now facing east, and I'm in this transition phase. And now as I complete the turn, I'm now facing the opposite direction, which is south, and the rope, as you can see, is in an underhand pattern. And now
this is kind of interesting because, like, there are these elements of transforms, which also appeals to the side of me that likes these kinds of transforms. Okay, so the final thing that I will talk about is this Indian Gada, which I'm not an expert on. But my exposure to this Gada was back when I was a child. I grew up in a family that, you know, is Indian and like taught me like the Hindu mythology. And within the Hindu mythology, there are like two main epics. One of them is called Ramayana. And it's kind of interesting because these epics also have a lot of philosophical ideas related to things like dharma, like duty, what is right, what is wrong. There are a lot of really interesting things in there. These are really cool stories. And one of the characters in this epic is Hanumanji. And as a child, I was very drawn to Hanumanji because Hanumanji could grow very tall, his tail could get very long, he could fly, he could pick up entire mountains. Pretty extraordinary person. You know, and symbolically he represents devotion and represents strength, among many other things. So his primary instrument, you could say, was this thing over here called the Gada. And I guess you don't see the mouse, but you can see this. It's essentially a long cylinder with this big thing at the end of it. And because of all the torque that this may apply, you have to be rather strong to be able to use this. Now, after this, the next time I was exposed to this weapon or instrument, whatever you want to call it, was in the Mahabharata, which is another, epic in Hinduism. Within Mahabharata, you have the Bhagavad Gita, which then goes into greater detail, taking inspiration from the Vedas and Upanishads and stuff like that, about the core philosophical sense of what is reality, what is illusion, like pretty much a lot of really interesting ideas. The Mahabharata is a fascinating epic, and the Ramayana in many ways, from my perspective, the good and the evil are a bit more crisply defined, as you may imagine good and evil to be. But in Mahabharata, there's a larger gray area between good and evil, from my perspective. And I watched Ramayana and Mahabharata both through these like Indian TV shows. So the Mahabharata was something like 100-part series. And in one part of it, they have this Gada Yuddha, the fight of two warriors who have Gadas. So I want to show you that before I show what people use now. So this battle right now that's happening, this show was made many, many years ago, and a cherished part of my childhood. These two warriors are cousins, and they're fighting to the death. And the good guy, Bhim, who's he's wearing this old outfit here. In order to win, has to do something a little bit shady. Because the unspoken rule is that you don't hit, down here in the center side of your body, and yet he does that in order to win the battle. So again, you have to think about, what is morality, what is good, what is bad. But the key thing to notice is that these are. Okay, so now what are people using it? And what I discovered is that a lot of people use the gada as a form of exercise. So just like rope flow, this requires you to increase your mobility, get a sense of rotation and cycles and oscillations and just being into the movement. And here you can see, strong men, and I guess this is, I think his name is Great Galma, as I got from Wikipedia, and he has a gada in his hand. So the final video I'll show before I finish with my little demos, and if anyone wants to try it, you guys can try. I don't have a gada, but here is someone in India, very actually close to my mom's village. I didn't take this video, but you'll see him exercising. You'll see that it's a nice fluid movement, pretty amazing. All right, so that's like the talking part of it, and now comes the demo. I've only been doing these things for like a week or two, so this is not something that I have mastered yet. But should any of you want to do this with me, you're welcome. So your first demo is this nice little jump rope. I've also been jumping rope, but that is something that everyone is familiar with, so I will not demonstrate that. But I'll show you this cardinal law with this, and then you guys can try it. So when you do this jumping rope, you do it, and then from what I understand, you want to do it just gently hit the ground, and then you kind of want to. And you want to be able to feel the rhythm. And then you turn into it. So right now I'm doing underhand. And then I turn around and almost like figure eight. And now I'm going overhand. So that was the cardinal law that I have practiced last week. And unfortunately that's as much as I can do. And then, for all of your viewing pleasure, here is a nice thick rope. And this one is 5 counts. But you really only do one thing with this. So I'll show it to you, and then all of you can try it. Hopefully I will not break anything. So you can make it go like this, and this requires a lot more stomach, and you can just, and then I think I can do a figure 8 type thing, and then, okay. So if you do that, you do get a nice workout. So when you guys come, you could probably do it somewhere where we don't destroy these screens. But that was this. And then the gada, so I don't actually have one, but I'll show you the technique. This is a little wiffle bat, you can try it out. So, it's like 10 and 2. So you start at 1, you let it go back. It's supposed to let it, once it comes back, you let it kind of swing, and then you pull it over. So really what you're doing is letting it swing and pull it over. Letting it swing and pull it over. So what I do have, instead of like an actual gada, is a sledgehammer. So I'll try not to break anything here. I, by the way, am 43 years old, so if I throw out my shoulder doing this, it was in devotion to talking points. All right. Thank you. So, and you guys can try it if you want. Here we go. It goes around, and then, so I can I don't have as fluid movements as the person you saw, but there you go. All right, that is the end of my talk.